Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
Today, our guest is Troy Castellano. Before we get started with that, we want to let you know that we'd love you to subscribe and hit the notification bell, select all, as well as wherever you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, share with friends, and hit the subscribe on all those platforms. We are excited to have Troy Castellano. Troy Castellano is a good buddy of mine. He's a great songwriter. He's a great producer. He's a great player and singer, so he's like a triple threat, right? So he can do it all. But
you're too kind.
Well, thank you. You deserve all that.
The hustle's inspiring too.
And the hustle. The hustle.
Yeah. Troy's got the hustle, man.
Troy does have the hustle. And
I want to hear the whole story, by the way. I don't know all your backstory.
Background, yeah.
I just know bits and pieces of it.
We have like the goal with the podcast is that you can see you and everyone we have on, and everyone who ends up becoming successful and winning Grammys and having platinum records and writing #1 songs, all of those folks were you at one point. So the goal is that you see, you get to shorten your trip and get more of a perspective of like, oh, what will it be? When I was a kid, I was always wondering, what will it be when I get there? If I can get there, what will it be like? You have a perceived thing in your mind of what that is. And then when you get there, it's not that it's worse, but it's different usually. So this podcast, we hope to do that. Troy Castellano is every bit as talented as anyone we've had on the program.
Oh,
he just hasn't had the Grammys. He hasn't had the #1 songs. He hasn't had the big mile markers. So I thought, man, isn't that cool? And I called Troy and I said, would you come on? Because you are one step further than everyone else in the world. Everyone's thinking, maybe I'll move to Nashville and give this music thing a try as a songwriter, as a record producer, as a player. And you have done that. You're one step further into that progress. You've been here how many years?
6 years.
6 years now.
Yeah, 6 years this year.
And it's like, okay, what does that look like before he hasn't snagged that big fish out of the pond yet, but what does it feel like? What does it look like? What's the day-to-day? What is the I'm going to pack up and go home scenario look like every once in a while? And what does the I don't care what anyone says, I'm going to pursue this forever? We want to know what that feels like from your perspective. Tell us about when you moved to Nashville. And I know you were in Minneapolis. I knew you when you lived in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
How did we find one another?
You were doing a Waves webinar, a live session that I logged onto. And this is like 2012. And at the end of it, you just said, hey, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Here's my email. And of course I did, because I had a trip scheduled to Nashville to do a song workshop and to meet with some publishers and just to see. I'd never been to Nashville. And then I seen your amazing place and read a bit about your success. And I'm like, he's kind of like me, but he's had some of those big markers you're talking about. And then you said, like, to a perfect stranger, and this is Joe in a nutshell. He's like, if he knows that you're into this business, he wants to help. And you said, hey, yeah, man, come by the studio when you're in town and let's talk songs.
Joe does that a lot.
In Nashville.
I love doing that, by the way. It's totally a selfish move, by the way. It's not like so altruistic. But
no,
go ahead.
but it really is, because there's a lot of people that get things going and they've worked hard to get there, and now they don't have time for anybody else because they're on their path. But you're on your path, and you do it with your school as well now. But I came here and we sat on this couch and we just talked. You just talked about, what do you do? What's your goals and what are you looking to do? And then you listened to a couple songs and you said, sonically it sounded good. Probably needs some lyric work, which was true, and it's why I came here, is to be immersed in what everybody does. But I came here and did that workshop, and I went back to Minnesota, and my heart was just screaming to be here. There was something calling, and I think it's that whole camaraderie. Like if I was a hippie back in the Haight-Ashbury days, if anybody knows, that's when it was flower power and everybody congregated there because they were all like-minded. And that's what Nashville was. You write songs, you produce, oh, me too. And there was all of this. Like I never seen so many people on the same path, And I just went home to my wife and I said, man, if there's any way we could make it work, I would love to go there and give it a try. And, you go through all these scenarios, but we're leaving everything we know. But I had heard this a long time ago. We're not trees. we can move. So that really meant to me, if it don't work, we can move back.
So here's, and I think Mike will agree with me on this. People come, they talk to you, they tell you how passionate they are about music, how they would die for it. It's the only thing that matters. It's why they're here. And then you wait to see whether they'll move to Nashville.
Yeah.
Because most of them won't.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Right? So you're talking about this Haight-Ashbury district. There's a certain kind of person that will get in a VW microbus and go there, right?
Yeah.
And then there's everybody else who talks about, for 50 years after that, talks about how they almost moved there.
Yeah.
And was a part of that movement. Certain people got in their cars and they went to Woodstock, right? It's like those people that make the move to Nashville. Eli, our guy, our engineer here, has done that. I will now spend extra. It is a litmus test. If they pass that litmus test and you don't encourage them or discourage them, but if they do make the move, well, then it's like, okay, this person has silently marked off something on the list that it takes to be successful.
That also goes. Yeah, right? That also goes for we've talked about this in the past. Of like, I don't know how you feel about this, Troy, but as a producer, let's say somebody comes to you, right, and you have some sort of minimal fee that you need to produce a track, whatever that is.
Yeah,
you know, $1,000, whatever that number is. If they can't come up with $1,000, do they have what it takes? To be successful in music? It's the same thing. It's like, and I don't know that you have to move to Nashville but it certainly helps.
It's very true. But what if what you want is what Troy wanted, he has to move to Nashville.
Right.
So there's certain people that it's like, okay, they've got to get here. And you can't blame them for not coming. It's one of those things, it's like you cannot blame them for not coming. But if they do come, it's a silent conversation where you check it off the list and say, this person has one of the attributes that it takes to be successful, and I can now invest a little bit more. I'm not wasting my time with that person.
Yeah. You know their passion is legit. And that they want to do this kind of thing.
If I remember correctly, and I don't ever do this, I told you to move to Nashville.
You said, you should be here.
You should move to Nashville.
You should be here, yeah.
And I never do that because I don't want to tell people. But I saw what you were doing, heard what you were doing, and thought, man, he's ready to come here and get into the Nashville ecosystem, and he will learn a ton quickly. Like when I moved to Nashville, I thought I was writing country songs.
Yeah.
And then you get to Nashville, you listen to the songs that you were like thinking, oh yeah, I could see someone doing this song and that song. You realize how out of touch they are with the culture of what really is in Nashville. You get here, you hang out, you co-write, you figure out what's said.
I remember being in New York, sending songs like this is a huge country smash, and they're like, yeah, that's not even country. Like,
people will send you things that just have like a banjo on it and say it's a country song, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But it is perspective, and I thought, man, this guy needs to do that. And even though I don't tell people that, I told you that because I knew in my heart, I knew that, and I don't very rarely do that. So when you moved to Nashville, it was impressive. And I've continually been impressed by your hustle. For instance, the two best venues to play in town is the Bluebird and the Listening Room.
Yeah.
I don't think there's two better venues to play as a songwriter.
That's it.
That's really it. They've got
top of the mountain, yeah.
But to get in there, people think it's, I'm going to go down and I'm going to start playing the Bluebird. That doesn't happen. You get to play the Bluebird. You have to be very connected you have to really get to a level to play the Bluebird. So Troy books all of his own rounds at the Bluebird, which is a very hard thing to do. They give him a night and he books a round. That's like a ton of hustle to do that. He also does that at the Listening Room.
It's just charm.
Well, I think it's tenacity, charm and tenacity.
Yeah.
And you have a ton of tenacity.
Yeah.
So I think what we want to do today is like talk about like, okay, how is it different than what you thought? You're a songwriter. You came here primarily as a songwriter, but you're a great singer. You can play great, make great demos. How is it primarily for you? Is it, what are the differences? Where have you felt like, oh man, I thought it was going to be this way, but it was really this way?
Well, just to backtrack just a little bit is like, I'm no spring chicken, of course, well into life. And I have what I call the midlife revelation. It's like, these are one of the things you must do to keep your sanity. So you got to go.
I feel like that's more impressive. It's easy to do when you're young and you don't have a family and there's
sure.
To just go to Nashville and like, but your roots were running deep, I bet.
Oh yeah.
You know,
family,
you're
friends,
uprooting everything.
And you were making good money.
Nobody here. Well, yeah, we're kind of jumping around the board, but I freelanced web design through the early 2000s. I made great money in that business, but I think I just got bored with it, and it was just not something I want to invest my life in. And towards the 2010, 2008, I had a record company that was being started in LA, fly me out. Limo rides to and from the airport, flights, stay at the Sheraton, and I did a showcase of BB King's. I wasn't ready then either, but they offered a record deal. I brought it to this attorney that I use in Minnesota every once in a while. He represents a lot of big artists, by the way. And he said, don't sign this. Don't sign this deal. And it was like $250,000 deal. And like, we went and toured some of the great studios in LA. And at that time I was 40, and I'm like, you guys know how old I am, right? And they're like, yeah, we're looking for an AC guy, hot
air conditioning and refrigeration.
Yeah. Adult contemporary rock, ACR. I don't know if that's what it is. But anyway, that really flipped my switch. And I just told my cover band that I'm done. I just want to make music. I learned that I want to create, not imitate. And my cover bands always made good money too. Like like I said, we're going backwards here a little bit, but for, most of my adult life, it was 3 to 4 nights a week playing. In the 90s, for sure, 3 nights a week. And we set a rate for our band, a minimum and a top end, Well, there was never a top end, but we played, one year it was like 150 dates,
So all this to say, you were making
Yeah.
some solid money.
Yeah.
Doing a couple of things, but music was a big part of it.
Yeah.
It was a different economy. And I tell people all the time, it's like, it's easier to be, we had Dan Melsh on, and he's got a great studio in a secondary market, and he's killing it. And a lot of that is Dan, because Dan's great, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is, in a secondary market, you can build an economy where you're of higher value.
Yeah.
Right? So now you moved to Nashville.
But yeah, so your question was like, what did I find out that was different about Nashville?
Like, what were the things that you were like, man, I didn't think it, okay, now I know. Now it was like, okay, I thought it was going to be this way, but it really is this way. Okay, do I go get a publishing deal, and is it really viable? Can I get a publishing deal? Is it worth a publishing deal? What do I do? How do I make my money? Is it as easy as I thought, pitching to people and getting my songs heard? Like, what were the realizations along the way where you're like, okay, I got to pivot, or this isn't what I anticipated, but I'm going to roll with it? Or
Well, number one was I thought there would be a fair wage to do songwriting if you got a pub deal, because 2012, the average pub deal was, say, $30,000. And that's really in advance. They get that back. But at least you have a livelihood. You got a team there. So that was one focus. By the time I got here, it was down to $15,000. By today, it's like people don't even take a draw because they don't want to owe that money. So there's really... I'm not saying they're not out there, and it depends on, your publisher and stuff. But so that direction wasn't working for me. And I think part of that was something I learned as well, is like the songwriting. I was writing songs that were on par with what's on the radio. Same lyrical kind of content, it's like the songs were just as good, sometimes a notch better, but I learned you just got to be unique. You got to have your own heart and soul, your own stories in those songs, own perspective. Like, you can't just write what's as good as that's on the radio, because that ain't going to cut it. You need to be better than that to get everybody's attention, to get you into those camps that will cut those songs.
So that probably was a realization. It was for me that Nashville didn't work like a best song contest.
Yeah, exactly.
You hear all these stories like Jim Moose Brown, or somebody was on recently talking about, the average time for a song is 7 years in town. Oh. And it's not uncommon. I've had songs 10 years old get cut that I thought were great songs. So it isn't just like, so many people, it's frustrating when you do go for Thanksgiving somewhere and people say, hey, your music business career, how's it going? Have you sold any songs? And, they just go through this thing where it's like, well, I've got this guy, he's really good at work. He's as good as anything on the radio. And it's like, I just don't understand why people think that it's just like, oh, you have this, then you get this.
Right.
And it's just not that way.
Yeah.
And when you move to town, you find that out quick.
Yep.
And it's okay. So we don't want to discourage people from chasing their dreams. But the realization here is that, okay, you got to pivot and look at the chessboard a little bit differently. And it's now, how do I get this accomplished? How do I get my songs to places? How do I find a way to pitch my songs? How do I get my songs heard? Once I do have a hit, how do I manage like the next 8 months of who I should be writing with, and so there's a big scheme of how it is, and it's just different than what you anticipate.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to write a great song.
Yep, I'm first and foremost.
And that's tough enough. Like before I moved to town, thinking about writing a great song, you were like, man, that's like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But then you realize that if you just hunker down and you do enough writing, and you write with enough good writers that you sort of are able to pick up, you're able to be consistent. Your consistency goes way up. And you start to write songs on a given day, every day, that could be cut and could be on the radio, because you wouldn't finish them if they couldn't do that. The mile markers.
Yeah.
Right? Part of the Nashville economy, writing with a lot of people and figuring that out. From each co-write, you learn a little tidbit.
Yep.
So, at the end of the day, you're looking like, okay, what do I need to do to keep myself? This is a new economy. It's not like I thought it would be, but it's like, okay, what is success? Everybody has to ask himself what success is. It's like, okay, do I want to cut? Okay, if I want to cut, do I want a single? Okay, do I want to have 20 number ones? Do I want to get my song in a movie? For you, what was success?
Success has always been just a livelihood out of creating music. Whatever that aspect is, playing it, recording it, writing it. If I can pay my bills, that's it. Anything above that is gravy. Like, the joke I was saying earlier to you, like, what do you call a guitar player without a girlfriend? Homeless, right? Well, so luckily I have a great wife. She's like, she's the steady Eddie. So I can play a little bit more than some other people. She carries the health insurance,
It's crucial.
We split our livelihood bills, but it's like, so the answer to that question is just being able to, for me, to pay bills doing what I love. That's it. So if I made $50,000 a year doing that, that's
$50,000
great.
a year would be a number for you that is like, okay, that's a real mile marker.
Yeah, that's
Harry Myree was on, and he was talking about
but
how he lives in an air conditioned and heated room. He eats 3 times a day. It's really interesting because a lot of these cats, I can remember. There was a really big song that came on the radio, and I was at 3rd and Lindsley, and I saw one of the songwriters show up to 3rd and Lindsley, and he literally, it looked like a video shoot. He showed up in like a Rolls Royce kind of car.
Yeah.
And he had 2 girls, and in my memory of it, it looked like a Kid Rock video, right?
Got a fur shawl around his neck.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say his name, but I just remember thinking to myself,
What does it rhyme with?
not going to do it.
Okay.
I just thought to myself, that cat's going to be sorry. It's like he has now elevated himself past the Harry Myree level, and it's like now he needs to continually be on the top of the charts to sustain that lifestyle.
This town especially, you got to be real careful, I think, about flaunting that a little bit.
People don't like it.
No. I remember when I first moved to town, right? Like,
You're right about that, yeah.
I've been busting my behind for, I don't even know. And then I had some success. I was just like, and I'd moved from New York City. I didn't have a car in New York City. So we were rocking, a 1-car thing here for a while. We had a little Honda Civic we bought in Brooklyn when we left. And and then I was like, I had done a publishing deal that was probably the last of the great publishing deals. I was like, screw it. I'm going to go get myself a Mercedes-Benz, a big one too. And I'm going to make all the wheels black and the windows black. You remember that car?
Yeah. I do remember that car. I remember you complaining about that car.
Well,
like when you had to change the battery, it cost
like $1,200. Everything was so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so eventually I got rid of it, went back to the Honda Civic, by the way. But the reason I did that was it felt really ostentatious driving it around in Nashville. I think it's changed a little bit now, but this was, many years back. I felt real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Showing up, and I felt uncomfortable showing up.
To co-write. Well, you got a couple kids like riding on bikes and scooters, like scraping along, and you're pulling in your Mercedes.
But I had done that, so I thought, well, I had been through the journey myself, and I was a bit older than most of the people, so I was like, you're gonna, this is gonna be yours too. Like I'm just a little bit ahead of you in terms of age and experience, or whatever, and. But man,
were you thinking of it in a way of showing success though?
No, it was just like I always wanted a Mercedes.
Like you wanted it for you. You didn't want it to.
My whole life, I just remember as a kid. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and we used to. One of my friends from school, his father had a Mercedes Benz. This is like 80s Mercedes Benz, you know. I just remember like when they would show up to pick me up to go somewhere, I was like, this is the coolest car ever.
That was a subliminal thing implanted in you as a child, which was like
100%.
If you're successful, one day you get this, and then you felt
and
like
it wasn't a BMW, it was a Mercedes. Like I don't know what it was, but and then once I got it, it was a beautiful car. The best thing about that car is the stereo. You want to listen to your own mixes in a thing that'll make you feel real good about yourself?
Yeah.
That stereo was amazing. It was not a great place to go test your mixes because it was just
Everything sounded good.
it was unreal. But it just felt I felt like I was 99.9% of the people I was working with, they were all still really struggling. And I felt it started to make me feel real awkward. That I felt like I was flaunting something.
I get it.
And I was like, that's not me to do. So I was just like, after a while, I was just like, I don't like this feeling.
I have no worries of that. I drive a Kia Soul.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
The radio's okay.
I did it out of fear. So like,
good place to check your mixes.
When I started to have success, I did it out of fear. I never did that. I never went and bought a boat.
Splurged a bit.
I never did it because I was always like that dude that was like...
We grew up with no money.
I grew up with no money, and I would look back and say, man, I spent 80 grand on a car or 100 grand on a car, and now we're struggling. And if I had that 100, I never wanted I was afraid. It was the regret of it.
Yeah.
So I always put it into things like that hopefully will become
Whole
more
value,
valuable, right? But that's the key, is finding what your version of success is. And then whenever you do get a little bit of success, being able to maintain the discipline to not do those stupid things.
Yeah.
But that's the advantage of having success when you're a bit older too, though.
Yeah, when you
yeah,
come
I
from
think you're
nothing,
right.
you really manage your money better. I think there'll be splurges with successes. Like, I don't know if I'd buy the new, latest, greatest car, but I'd probably buy a little toy, like a motorcycle,
like a
or a
jet
little
ski or
collector
something.
car.
Well,
hot
and
rod.
here's the other
There
thing.
also has to be some reward for because the amount of work
Vacation
that goes
for the
into
family.
it is just an extraordinary amount of work.
You do need to
Yeah.
have a little blow off money. But the other thing we're not talking about is there's a ditch that you dig to be in the music business that when you get money, you actually have to fill it up because you have been in the music business. So I used to carry a little bit of debt, like anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 worth of credit card debt,
Yeah.
And that was like, you clean that up and then you don't do that again.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like you get yourself into a ditch because you're in the music business and you're trying to say, this is what I need to do, but I really need to be all in it. Because if I'm not all in it, someone else is all in it. And how can I expect to compete with somebody who's all in it? And it's like, I really want to do this. I'm called to do this. And I want to make sure that I don't, take myself out of the opportunity. So I then get in a little debt to do that.
Your debt and my debt was probably the same for gear. Like, I invested in 2 ADAT machines back when they came out, and a mixer, and taught myself to record.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was $5,000 on a card.
It was easy to be in the music business. You needed about 20 grand, and it's probably stays the same now. It's a lot cheaper if you're just doing desktop recording.
Yeah,
but if you're going to build any kind of like little recording space where people come and pay you for it.
Got microphones and gear, yeah.
But-
What are you using? What is your setup look like
just
right
all
now?
in the box using Logic.
It's got a great, I don't want to call it a Home Depot shed, but it looks like you could buy it at Home Depot, but it's the biggest version of that, right?
Yeah.
And he's built it out. He's got like a version of this that's like a 1/10 scale.
South Barn.
Yeah, the
Columbia
South Barn.
South Barn, yeah.
But he's got it set up. He's up on the end, and he's got all his gear there. And so it's like you go there. I've written there with him, and it's like it's a great little hang.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah.
Separate
It's
from
like
the house.
12 by 18 with a 15-foot ceiling, because it is barn
Was it
shaped.
on the property, or did you
This was the amazing thing when we looked at this house. I'm sure that was the
yeah.
selling point for
Totally.
me. There's a shed in the back. It's got power. It's got 220 power. It's got heat and AC unit. There's even water out there. The guy it was a workshop, so he had a bench out there, all the Christmas decorations
Insulated?
stored in there. Huh?
It was insulated?
No, it was just the shell, just the frame and the outside. And then he had a urinal in there, by the way, so he could pee in there. I took it out, but the water still runs to the shed. But it was all there. And that was, when I opened these 2 doors, it's like barn doors. I opened them up and I went I had the vision. The vision.
Awesome.
This is going to be, I'm going to make it like a barn. I'm going to do it white and gray. It's going to
And by the way,
barn
the
wood
house
and-
probably didn't have everything you needed, and you're like, I don't care. And
No,
I'm buying it because of the barn.
That was a big push, but the house had 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. So there's a master bath, a living bath, and then a bathroom down in the basement there, which was a little office, and we needed one more bedroom. So I'm pretty handy. Like, if I have the time, I can build it. I can do these things, and I'm a YouTube mechanic, and I'm a YouTube framer and all that stuff. But so I just took this room, and we took it out 3 or 4 more feet to make another bedroom down there. But the bedroom had to be built first, then I went to the shed.
Yeah, that was the rules.
Yeah, and just drywalled it out in the shed, insulated it with the sound, that acoustic 24, I think it's called, or something, but the batting. So it's pretty cool. I can be out there.
And it's great. You can see it online. He does a bunch of live. He did a Project 52 where he wrote 52 songs in a year, and he would air live performances. So
yeah.
At the end, we'll put down in the description
stuff,
all of his social stuff, but you'll be able to see that series. So tell us a little bit now. You're in Nashville. And it's like you're struggling. It's like, but you're winning some, you're losing some. It's not exactly like maybe you thought it would be, but you're adapting and pushing on. It's like, that's too important, I'm going to do it. Whenever you're doing, and then you start to get like cuts on Canadian records. You start to get things out of market. Things like where you're writing with a ton of artists, and then they're saying, hey, these are great songs. And then you end up maybe recording them. Maybe you produce them, maybe you don't. But they end up going out. And you've had several cuts on Canadian radio.
Yeah,
yes?
yeah. Just in the last, so it takes a few years to get the people you like to write with. You write with people that hopefully have their own career path mapped out and what they want to do. But I got a great friend from Canada that reached out to me. His name's Doug Folkens, and he does pretty well up there with Canadian artists. And we wrote a lot online first, and then he's introduced me to a few people, and then he's got a lot of these cuts. Like there's a song called "Pour It to Me Straight," which has been actually cut 4 times, but a girl, Justine Lynn, cut it.
Put this on you a little bit.
Yeah, and another one with the Heels called "Take the Trailer." And they did just the craziest cool video.
Great video for that
yeah.
song.
And Doug himself put out a song that I wrote with him and Casey Timmer called "Wait on the Weekend," which is like kind of a John Party song. And Doug went and did it all like laid back, swampy. But he did really well with that. And now I've just been trying to track my royalties on that, and I haven't had a lot of experience between.
So, like, what were the success stories of those? Were there's like, I know one was like video of the year.
Oh yeah,
right?
I brought
what's some of the
some notes here?
Like on the Canadian stuff, what are some of the accolades for the songs?
Wait on the Weekend was number 86 on the media-based country chart. So
that's a major chart.
Broke the top 100. Was played on or picked up by 46 stations. Went to number 1 on a True North indie charts up there, and was also one of the top 30 played songs on Sirius Canadian radio,
which is huge.
Yeah, and then "Take the Trailer" was added by 19 stations. They peaked at 94 on Mediabase, and were nominated this year. They're nominated for Song and Video of the Year for the British Columbia CMAs. And they won Best Indie Video Country category of 2019. And then "Pour It to Me Straight" was added to 36 stations. Now, I got this info from my co-writers on that song. Had 1,500 spins in the first 3 months and just cracked the top 100. So there's 3 top 100 songs.
Now, here's the real question. It's like, when you lived in Minneapolis, if you had heard like CMA nominated Song of the Year in Canada, like if you had heard that, what would your expectations be of what the reward financially would be for that stuff?
All right. Well, I don't know financially, but maybe industry. Like, all right, I can go in with this resume
and get a publishing deal.
Yeah, exactly.
But you thought like,
and contest winning stuff or other awards.
If you're watching
too.
the CMAs and you see a video of the year or song of the year, you'd think those guys are doing it for a living.
Yeah.
You would think that, right?
I would think there would be some monetary gains there.
So this is what me and Mike have talked about this quite a bit. We've got a lot of friends who are like you, super mega talented, that we're like waiting. It's an egg timer for them to have their big hit. Some of them have like had a career where they have not had a hit, and it's like, I can't believe they haven't had a hit. 10 years with a major publisher, rocking it out with great songs, right? And great people and great connections, and never had a hit. And I've told Mike, I'm almost afraid for those guys to have hits, because in their mind, they've built that hit up to be like, Well, it's all over. Once I have my hit, that's my lottery moment. That's my
Yeah.
big break. And I'll never have to worry again. And I always tell Mike, I'm like, man, if those guys have that, I almost wonder if they're going to be like disenchanted by the
Disheartened,
reality
for sure,
of what the compensation is for those songs. You know, it's like, wait a minute, I've been spending my whole life trying to do this one thing, and I just did it. After 10 years of showing up every day and writing and pitching and just religiously doing
What is
it.
the number one country song? Is it 500,000?
Right now, I don't know. I know it's way down because commercial terrestrial radio is gone, and that was where the best rates were.
But
I
you
heard
know-
recently $300,000.
Okay, yeah, that makes
300
sense.
grand total copyright.
Which is crazy, right? So if it's a three-way right,
Three-way
100,000 is allocated to each person, and then most likely
It's a full pub deal.
is a full pub deal if
Yep,
you're in
they get half
Nashville.
that.
So you're seeing what
50
grand.
grand. Well, you know, I wanted to sort of like be totally, you're saying you'd be totally transparent, and I'll be so transparent with I got some of the stuff from my hits and some of my like just regular TV placements, because I see these things on Facebook like, hey, learn how to get your songs in film and sync and all this. And on my film and sync stuff, most of that stuff is in the single digit dollar, $8-10 for performance royalties. Some of them are several hundred because they're networks, CBS. Even the HBO stuff is not that much money.
So, and the streaming's even way less.
And there's folks that think like they're going to make a career out of making sync music. It's going to be this great career, but the reality is there's not really enough there unless you're going to go be like Danny Elfman, you know, and do scores for major motion pictures and become like a celebrated dude.
Yeah.
But like when you're doing regular television and streaming network stuff and streaming internet, there's just no money in that to say I'm going to go write sync cues for Deadliest Catch. And you can do it a little bit. They're continually chomping all that stuff down.
Well, the TV probably pays 10 times what streaming does, if not 100 times, really. Like I just had a statement here I was looking at because these
You've
shows...
done a ton of MTV stuff.
Yeah, so just to backtrack, like before I came here, about 2010, 11, I got connected with a sync company called Scorekeepers in LA, and they accepted a bunch of my tracks. And then a few months later, I started seeing those on placements. And MTV actually... it's a kind of a plug for broadjam.com. They're a listing site. You pay $5 to pitch to a listing, and they got me connected there. But they also connected me with MTV. I pitched a couple of songs to them. The music supervisor, I guess that's what you call her at MTV, called me and said, do you have anything else? And I sent her 20 tracks, and they took 13 of them, and that was directly from me to them. So that stuff ended up on...
Making twice the amount of money.
Yeah. So I get the 100% of it. And it was, I used to be fat. Mom's moving in, Jersey Shore, Nitro Circus,
Toddlers and Tiaras.
Then Scorekeepers got me, like Auction Kings, Toddlers and Tiaras. I mean, Knives Out, all these reality show things. And what was really cool because, like I said, I'm backing up here a bit, but after I had that record company fly me out to LA and offer this deal and turn it down, I realized I want to create. I just looked for ways, how can I make money doing what I love to do? And that was one of the ways I went, like, let's just pitch them a bunch of these 1-minute ditties. They're acoustic things, they're rock things. They fit great for reality TV stuff.
These are like bumper in and out things. They're not like rock band songs you've written, right?
Well, some of them were. And then they get the instrumental, and I parse that out in probably 4 or 5 variations.
But like when they're cutting in from commercial, it'd be your music, and then they're in.
Yeah. Yep. Or they'll use it as a bed. If it's the mood, they'll put it underneath the crying dialogue or whatever. But yeah, I just found out that that's a way that I can make money too, 100%. But so I'm trying to remember where I was
But you were
going
showing me like some of the statements for that stuff on a quarterly basis, meaning 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And those statements, when you were getting a lot of those cuts where you were in the 3, and you don't, by the way, he doesn't mind talking about the money. So that's part of the reason I'm mentioning this.
Today,
About like $300 to $500 a quarter from those syncs.
Yeah.
Which is great. And let's be honest, there may be a person out there that had like like Billy Stein that's killing it doing this, right? But let's talk about the vast majority, the real reality of what our experience has been. Me as a songwriter, I've had hundreds of songs in network and regular television. And, you know, some of those pay good, $500 to $700 for the placement. There used to be licensing fees with network stuff. But as the vast majority, my stuff is single-digit numbers, like $9, $10, $12 for things that were placed in Brotherhood or an HBO show.
Yeah.
The stuff you showed me from this stuff we've been talking about, the MTV stuff, ended up being mostly $300 to $500 per quarter.
Yeah.
So you're talking about $2,000 a year, which is great. Keep doing that. But people, going back to what we're talking about, people think they're going to go do something and they're going to be making their yearly nut on it.
Yeah, bank, yeah.
That's not really a reality. And I think like people should know that stuff. Just like when we talk about you moved to Nashville and it's like, okay, you're writing songs and you've got the song that's nominated for CMA Song of the Year in British Columbia, right? People would think that guy is a full-time writer. He's killing it. One day I will be there. And the reality is that's not the truth.
It's a facade. We all have to look successful, but on paper, it's like,
what is your approximate earnings on that song that is nominated for Song of the Year?
You know what? I got $8 from CSAC last week on that. So.
And it's currently in its earnings stage, but we're not talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's
right?
hundreds, but yeah.
I think that's just a super valuable thing for people to know that it's like, we're not discouraging anyone, but it's like, if you continually think that when you get the carrot, it's going to taste a certain way, I think we're obligated to let people know that the reality is you can have a song that's nominated for Song of the Year in British Columbia, the Canadian CMAs, and you could say like, my perception is that guy is making his living as a songwriter. And the reality is that song maybe will earn $2,500.
Yeah.
Total. Maybe.
Yep. Over its lifespan.
I think that's important for people to know that. And I've been able to have both the like really big songs and songs that don't earn at all. I've had a Tim McGraw cut that was with the number 30 and died whenever he changed record labels. And that song we're talking about hundreds of dollars.
From a major artist.
From Tim McGraw.
Yeah.
And I've got other, like my best, I went on BMI and they only go back 10 years and two of my hits, I didn't get the peak earning months, but I did have Without You. And Without You for Keith Urban was a number one at country radio. I only looked at country at the airplay numbers. And the highest peak quarter for that, I made 100, let me make sure I say this right because I want to be accurate with it. The highest peak.
Your biggest quarter.
My biggest quarter on that song, let me look here. I want to do it right. All right, was $137,754 at the peak of Without You, like the biggest quarter for that song. Ton of money.
Nice, yeah.
Ton of money. But divide that across all the years.
15 years,
and that 137 would have been all the royalties for Without You. All the royalties for Without You, American Ride, the number one for Toby Keith, and Do You Believe Me Now? So there's 3 number ones that quarter. But the one thing that I thought was super interesting that we talked about is when they tell you what you're making, let me tell you how they do this. Without You, it was spun 474,000 times that quarter. My share on that was 50%. So I wrote that with Dave Behana, so it's a two-way right, full publishing deal. And they were going to pay me $24,995 for that song for those spins. And then they have this little thing that's called a hit song bonus. You see it here?
I can't quite read it without my glasses.
Put your glasses on. So this is the thing that kind of bugs me. So the hit song bonus, you see it?
What, $500?
Right here. Hit song bonus, right in the middle of the screen.
Oh, $100,000?
$100,000.
That was the
Holy
bonus?
crap.
So I only really earned $24,995 if they're going to do it by spins.
Wow, if you didn't get that bonus?
And the bonus was over $100,000. That always bugged me because it's like, I just felt like, what are they doing there? They're like trying to make a way that I can't just say, hey, it was spun this many times in these markets and this is what it's worth. They have this other column that doesn't make any sense to me. And it's so now as a songwriter, you really can't trace, where does that money come from? It comes from your songs that are being spun and Mike's that are being spun. So
Was that bonus from the PRO?
Yeah. It's super shady. I don't know how they run it, and I don't like that I can't add it up myself. But, this was like when I did all...
But you'll take it.
Yeah, I mean...
Hey, I'm thankful for whatever I get.
Green.
But after this is all said, and this is just U.S. radio royalties, because their royalties sheets go on and on and on here. So I just did U.S. performance from radio, which is, in the rest of it maybe was another $6,000. So not a lot of money. It is a ton of money, but not a lot of money compared. Whenever I added up my money for the last 10 years from songwriting, I made $30,000 a year.
That's
Off of
I
three number
realized
ones.
right away too, like one number one or one big successful song isn't your livelihood, because you need one of them a year to have a decent livelihood, especially with 2- and 3-way rights.
If you had told me moving to Nashville that I was going to have a number one song, I'd think like, well, I could retire. It's like 8675309.
Right.
Beach home in the Bahamas, all that, yeah.
Yeah, so when you divide it across those 10 years, and granted the biggest numbers for the other two hits are not in those 10 years, because I could only go back 10 years on BMI Online. I was, I think it was like maybe $350,000 worth of income in those 10 years. $35,000 a year.
Yeah.
With 3 number ones, 2 of them multi-week number ones. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think that's good money. For me, that's killer money. But when you do it, if I were to go and become a CPA, I would make much more than that, right? So let's not, and I don't want to discourage anyone from being a songwriter and coming to Nashville and doing it, but I think they have a right to know that it's like, the reality is not that you're going to move here, and once you get that giant thing that you're just like so desperate to get, and it's driving you and getting you up every morning to write, once you get it, you think that it's like all
the
over.
end all.
And that you have made it,
yeah.
and then it will be easy after that, but it's just like, $35,000 a year, that's maybe a school teacher in middle America, right? For those 10 years. So I think it's important that people know the reality of that and still do it, because you're supposed to do it.
The truth is we're told this all the time. If you're going to get into this business, you have to love it for what you do and the reward you get out of what you've made,
right? Not
what you earn. It's like and when I say what you made, it's that track you created, that song you wrote, that I love that. It's like, it's a buzz. Of course.
Are you still excited every time you walk in the studio?
No, not every time. Honestly, it's like some days I have to, like yesterday I was working.
But when you listen to a song back after it's done, you still are excited.
Yeah, for the most part. Sometimes you have those, right?
That's how I feel too.
Uh-oh.
There's sometimes where, you spent a lot of time on a song and I've listened to it later and I go, man, why did I go there? And then there's other songs that you listen back and you go, man, I forgot about how good this song is and what it makes me feel like,
Yeah. I just think people should know what success looks like. And it's okay. It's like, I really hope that they still continue.
Success is simply, in this business, is doing what you love and paying your bills. And I don't care if you live in a 1-room apartment and you're eating ramen, but you get to do what you love. There's success to that, because you know what? You're your own person. You're making your bills. I don't know. Like, life is bills. Life is survival. And what do you want to do to survive?
Right.
I want to create music. And I think, taking it back with three kids and a wife, it's like I've got all that responsibility as well, and I've probably neglected some of that with my kids as well, chasing this dream. I got here full guns blazing, like I was, all right, I got the goods. I've been producing. I know how to write songs, and it wasn't the case. I chased some things for a while, and I'm also, this is me at heart. I'm not an ass kisser too, so I'm not going to do whatever it takes to get what I want. I'm going to make sure that I'm happy with what I'm doing as well. But, so yeah, I'm at this place. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I'm at this place now where I came here the first 5 years was like trying to impress some industry people I met, and that I can do this thing. I would love to be part of your team, all of that. And to just like realizing, I think I just like being in control of my own destiny.
Are you getting these cuts? You're getting them by writing with artists in You're not getting
Yeah.
it from song pluggers, right? Song pluggers is a person that goes around and plays your song around town to management,
Yeah.
to A&R and to artists. So.
We had a plugger, me and a partner, Terry Hicks, who
Terry Hicks.
we partnered our catalogs together, and we hired a plugger who's really reputable, but we really didn't get any traction. So it was a lot of money.
A
going
year
out.
of
A year. We
So
got
you-
one cut that isn't out yet.
So after a year of them playing both your catalogs all around, they got one song cut.
Yep.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not tough, but most of your cuts are coming from like writing with someone, then they say, I got to record this song.
Yep, with me and then my co-writers, their pitching efforts as well. And, it's like, I think that's the ticket everybody tells us starting out in this business. Write with artists who put out music, put out videos, they're hustling on their own,
Yeah.
And
you're like Mike said, you're such a hustler. You work hard. A lot of people try to book the Bluebird and they just give up. But you didn't get to book the Bluebird the first time you asked him.
No,
sure.
That was an interesting story. A friend of mine and yours, Brian DeVoe, invited
From
me.
9 Days.
Yeah, for Story of a
band.
Girl, big hit, man, for them guys. Brian's just a really great guy, and I think you've had some cuts with 9 Days, as a matter of fact. But Brian invited me to this round at the Bluebird, and I'm pretty forward, but we did this round, and it just so happened that I got asked to play 4 rounds in a row there, like within 4 months, one a month. So I reached out to, I forgot her name. Was it Margaret? I don't think she works there anymore. At the Bluebird, my
Amy?
contact there. No, it wasn't Amy, but, and I just reached out and I said, hey, I played the Bluebird a few times and I got a bunch of hit friends, hit songwriter friends that I'd love to bring in and put around together. And I think I schmoozed her in a way because I had seen a special on the Bluebird that night before. And I said, by the way, are you the, God, I wish I remember her name. Are you the person that was in the Bluebird documentary I watched last night? She goes, oh my God, are they still playing that? And I said, yeah, it was great. I really loved it. You were great and all that, maybe that was a little ass kissing there, but she's like, oh yeah, how many you have to play here like 4 rounds and then you get evaluated there, by the way. The staff scores each performer at the end of the night and hands that in. And she said, yeah, it looks like we can give you a round. So I was really blessed by them 4 different groups of people inviting me in. And then when I made that contact, this is what it's all about. When you make a contact, reach out. Just even like I did with you as a friendly, hey, I really liked what you did and would love to meet for coffee or whatever. But
yeah. It takes that hustle on top of it. And you're such a great, whenever I play with you, whether it be at the listening room or at the Bluebird, I'm always astonished. It's like so many good songs.
Oh, thank you, man.
Would you be willing to play Quitter?
Yeah, I think. Now, I haven't played it for a while. I've been in COVID, quarantine.
Gibson?
Let's see.
We just had
you got a capo?
we had Brett Young in this week for our actual recording session, so everything
did?
kind of
Yeah.
blew up in here,
Yeah.
like all of our settings and where things are at. So we're going to find that guitar. It might need a little tuning. I don't know if we'll get a copyright strike for this. Is this like registered everywhere? And
It is, but I get my own copyright strikes all the time. Don't you guys?
Yeah.
I think that's how they're
And it's-
actually seeing to pay me now.
it's
Because
super
I've-
arbitrary because sometimes they catch it and sometimes they don't catch it. It's like I'll put up a video and then I re-upload it and the second one won't get the copyright strike.
Right. It's just arbitrary.
We did this little commercial, and as we were doing it, I did this because the dog hair. I was petting the dog, and the tuft of dog hair went up onto Mike, and I went like this here, and I said, "Oh, there's some dog hair on you, right?" And we just kept it because it was funny, and they tagged it as gross and obscene because I think we mentioned dog hair. Believe it or not.
For real?
Yeah?
Yeah, so that got like gratuitous, gross,
Oh, my
and
God.
Wow.
there was like a category that it triggered, which was like so bizarre
That's
to me.
crazy.
So like I had to re-upload it, and then eventually it stopped. Recognize it.
Wow.
We're gonna get. You need a capo.
Yeah.
There should be one in the closet above the.
Got one.
Oh, forget it.
Eli's on it, man.
All right. I seriously haven't played this song for.
I love this song. This is one of my favorite songs. It's one of those songs that I wish I wrote.
I remember this. I remember hearing this. This is a great song.
They're a great song, right? I mean, there's something to these songs when people do them. You're like, how did I not write it? Let me see. Go ahead and
Yeah.
play the Sulu sound check.
Some people say a real man never quits, but I admit that this one did. So, sound good?
Yeah. I thought you were going. I'm going to do that. This is like my mixing technique.
This is it. Yep. Tip that mic down.
Awesome.
Right.
And who'd you write this with?
I wrote this with Brett Mandel, one of the guys I met at the workshop I came here for in 2012.
Just a two-way write?
Yeah.
And it was Keith was almost going to cut this song, Keith Urban, right?
No, that was Days Like These. That was another song. Yeah. But this song, it was funny because it was me and my co-writer Brett were waiting on another writer to show up, and he gives me this lyric, this Quitter lyric, and he had a lot of it written out, but we ended up, rehashing what he had down on the page. But it's just by circumstance, I had this little piece of piano music, and I just started singing to it, and it matched great. So it took us maybe a half hour, and we wrote it 3 different ways, because we got some feedback on it. And
it's about addiction, so it's a touchy subject. People would be like, oh, maybe try, feels a little weird because of this or that.
What about the girl? Tell me about the girl, I'm like, okay. So we went back to the original version, and we wrote a end verse that I really like. But yeah, so this one's called Quitter. Some people say a real man never quits, but I admit that this one did. Wasn't loving the life I was living, so I walked away from it. And I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit needing and overthinking. I quit lying, I quit cheating, I quit blaming, and I quit leaving. And I've never felt more like a winner since I've become a quitter. Ooh. I've been hurting those that I care about. I tore them up and I let them down, but I'm living proof people can change. Look at the man I am today. Oh, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit needing and overthinking. I quit lying, I quit cheating, I quit blaming, and I quit leaving. And I've never felt more like a winner since I've become a quitter. Ooh. Since I've become a quitter. Ooh. I don't really miss what I've been missing. My only regret is I didn't do it sooner. This is my favorite verse. I quit hating, I quit judging, I quit waiting and holding grudges. I quit fighting, I quit taking, I quit reliving my past mistakes. And I never felt more like a winner. No, I never felt more like a winner since I've become a quitter. Ooh. Since I've become a quitter. Ooh. Since I've become a quitter.
Yeah, man.
It's a great song.
Thank you.
If we get that song cut on this podcast, we're going to be your publishers on that song.
I'm not sharing. No.
Get 50-50. Thank you, buddy.
I remember when I had played that song for you and was talking to you about helping me with a demo, right? And I remember that you go, that's a great song. Who's got publishing on that?
Yeah.
And then we talked about a deal, and I won't get into the details, but it was like one of those that the co-writer's like, I'm not sure if I want to share rights on that one. And then we just moved on. But you did help me with the demo.
I did help you with the demo.
And it's one of those things that the demo's great, but I always go back to that piano vocal version. I think the most emotion is in that one, you know?
Well, that's a great song, dude. Congratulations. You got
Thank
a
you.
ton like that. So, and the moral of the story today is like, hey, just know that reality is not going to ever match up with what you imagine it's going to be, but it doesn't mean you don't do it.
Yeah, the bottom line is,
you know,
do you regret the move?
I do not. I do miss the
That's-
people. I miss the friends and people, but I don't. I love it here. I love doing, you know, to hit on that, like making money in this business just on the songs is hard. It's tough as all get out. I mean, we all know this because we've done songs. Mike, you're working with a band that you put a lot of time into, and it's like you have to work. And it ain't all going to come from the songwriting for me. So I just wanted to put this into this podcast. It's like, so what do? I love to make music. So I set up a little studio, which most people can do with a couple mics and a laptop these days. But I learned to produce songs, and then I produce demos for people. So I make money doing that. I just recently started making a few bucks by helping artists release singles. We do a live video, and the recordings are great. And we put these videos out of the studio. So it's like a snapshot of what that artist is like live. The TV and sync stuff, I'm back into that and pitching a lot of the songs for that. What else do I do for money? You know, that's
You hustle
Yeah,
nonstop.
It's just like
looking for any nook and cranny to like figure out what you can squeeze the last little bit of anything out of an
I
opportunity.
still do the mechanical licensing on a song. I call it mechanical/digital. And I'll do a 2,500 minimum on those, you know, because that's probably all I'm ever going to see out of that song, you know, especially for these indie artists. And that's not taken away from their talent. It's just how it is. So I made, you know, probably 10 to 12 grand on licensing alone last year just for the
So it's not like what you imagined. You've been here 6 years. You're currently heavily in the dues portion, paying your dues.
Yeah.
But the goods are there. Like that song, dude, trust me, if that song were cut by the right Tim McGraw, I mean, just about anybody could cut that song, any male.
Right.
And that song is a number one song. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
so the work
thank
is
you.
there, and it's like you become a great producer. So if they need production work done, if they need to shoot some videos and they want to come to Nashville, you know, all that stuff, you probably do, someone sends you a song, you'll work it up and give them a full demo. So any of
Send
these
me a
things
word tape. I'll build it out for you.
that are in his wheelhouse, we're going to have contact information for him. We really appreciate you coming and shining the light on what it is to be like, this is the we knew you when portion for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're having success. You're able to keep doing it
Yeah.
every year. That's the ultimate sort of moniker of success. So great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I think it's this impending thing where we're going to be like, hey, I knew Troy. He came on our podcast and was talking about it right before he blew up. That's how I feel about your level of talent and what you do.
Thank
So
man.
I can't
agree,
wait to
by
see
the
it.
way.
He's
Totally
awesome.
agree. Everyone should follow Troy on Facebook too. It's inspiring to watch, man. There's a lot.
If you could put
of content.
his life and Ron Petrov's, these people that we know that
They
are
just
super
have the hustle, man.
If we could put their
Ron
life into
too.
an actual course that people could buy,
It's true.
It would be-
Ron, who's been on this podcast before, Ron Petrov, Ron and Troy feel similar to me, and guys that later in life decided that, which I find I give up people so much credit. Again, to me, it's a lot easier when you're young. You don't have kids, you don't have a wife or whatever. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm going to go waste 10 years down here, and if it works out, great.
if it doesn't work out right,
Right,
you go
no
back.
big
You
deal.
can always go back to
No one's going to foreclose on anything.
Cleveland or wherever you're from, kind of thing. But man, it's just like, and I don't know that I went to New York City. That was where I started my journey. I lived in Syracuse in upstate New York and stuff like that. And my wife at the time was just like, my band had disbanded, and she was like,
Now what?
no, she I remember it clearly. We had just bought a townhouse, the first thing we ever owned. Bought a townhouse in Syracuse, New York, and we're just like, shit, man, this is it. Like, I was like a courier or something, you know, like my band, I'm like, shit, man, like, you know, like,
Destiny's
I just
been
spent
defined.
10 years in a van
This is it
touring.
for me, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, and she was like, we're moving to New York City. And I don't know that I would have done that by myself, if I'm being honest.
You would have been too kind. You wouldn't want to put that on your family.
Yeah, I watched my father. My father worked for Eastman Kodak his entire life. Had no interest in working for Eastman Kodak his entire life. You know, he wanted, I think he wanted to be a dentist, or, you know, he had like entrepreneurial things, but it had been so drilled into him from his father. Security. You work for a major corporation, and you know you'll get benefits and pensions and healthcare, all the.
And all those people grew up to be bitter, not bitter, but just heartbroken over what they should have done.
He was pissed. Yeah, he spent his whole life.
Dude,
pissed.
There's a soul. This is what we all have in common. Would you rather have all of that security in place? Yeah, that's great and it's important. But I think I'd rather die going like, hey, I lived a good life. I did what I like to do.
So not to hijack it, but with my father, the thing I credit my father the most with, right, is he lived this life that he really didn't love, work-wise at least, you know, and it was all about us as a family, which obviously we appreciated very much, but. He knew that my brother and I were not cut out for corporate America. And so unlike his father before him who said, go, you know, this is where the security is, he was like, you won't make it a week in corporate America. So go do whatever you love to do. Don't do what I did. There's two kinds of people in the world, right? There's the one that go, well, I did it, so you have to do it. And then the other one go, I did it, I hate it, don't do it.
At least he told you that.
So 100%.
Yeah.
That was the biggest gift he ever gave me.
It's really required. Do yourself a favor. If you don't have a supportive scenario and you're not married, make sure you don't marry that girl that's not supportive. Yeah. Like I've always been the lottery ticket. Kim grew up in like a really unsecure world. So she's got a corporate gig, which is medical benefits, which is like, could cover the expenses of our lifestyle.
That's my wife.
So my money has always been lottery ticket money. And the second the lottery ticket money goes away, my soul just kind of dies. Like, what are we doing? You know, it's like the excitement of jewelry money. You know, it's like you see a quarter. That's one quarter, 1/4 of that year was 136 grand. That was a year that we had lottery money.
Windfalls, yeah.
Right?
Man.
So it's like the idea of that upside and being successful is like, it's really great, but you can't have it if you don't have a supportive spouse. Kim has been, she doesn't want anything for me other than the best for me. And I know people that have like, they're in a relationship and the other person's kind of like, they're mad at them. They're angry and jealous of them.
It's a hard thing.
Yeah,
it's a very hard thing to watch, I think, is to watch somebody chasing their dream. And I think
it takes a special person.
But I also think a lot of people don't
that.
even know what their dream is. Right? It's like, you know what, you've probably your entire life known what your purpose is.
Yeah.
And knowing your purpose is the greatest gift anyone could ever have in their life. I've known my purpose my entire life. Like from the time I was a little kid, I knew I was going to do music. I just knew it.
Me too, yeah.
You know, but that's a gift, right? But I think a lot of people have no idea what their purpose is. And it's very difficult to watch. To be in a relationship with somebody who knows what their purpose is.
Yeah.
I have had that struggle. Because me and my wife have been together since we were kids, literally since teenagers. And I lived on my own basically since I was 16. She moved in with me shortly after that. It was like she came from a crappy childhood. I didn't. I had a great childhood. I just was defiant, you know. Right. But you know, over the years, she's just like she's literally been bitter about it because it's taken a lot away from me away from family things.
Okay.
And me and Joe wrote a song called Without Me. It sounds a bit arrogant, but I don't know if she's even heard it yet. But it's about where would you be without me?
Right.
Like in a different circumstance.
You were wondering the
all
moral
these things you could have if you didn't live with
the
this
moral of the
creative
story.
artist guy.
Oh, wow.
Was like, without me, your life might be a lot, like you would hate to acknowledge that your life would probably be a lot better without me. You know?
Where would you be without me?
Okay, but hang on. Now, I get it. But with your kids, I have this conversation with people a lot that I find really interesting. Are you not teaching your kids something, whether it's a conscious effort on your part or not, but you're teaching your kids to chase like, you only get one go round in life,
For
right?
sure.
Like, and so like, I feel like that's something, you know, that is important that I see my kids pick up on, is that it's like, you're showing them to chase your dreams. Like who
To go for it.
to go for it. And don't chase the money.
That especially came true when we made the big move, because now that's something like, at first, of course, they all went through it. Like, we're leaving everything. We don't know anybody. And there's this fear of the unknown
Sure.
always. But now I think in their adult life that they go like, we did that, was nothing. You know,
Right.
they've experienced it.
It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is don't not come to Nashville. Don't not chase whatever your dream is.
But no, it's hard, and you
just know you're going to have to pivot.
Yeah.
That our expectations are when you arrive at your expectations, they're never what you thought they were going to be when you set out.
And it's not a
and
5-year
imagine.
town. It's a 10-year town.
Yeah.
Or it's a 1-year town.
Or it's a 1-year town. But I remember
It's
them
not
saying
fair.
it was a 5-year town, right? There's this
Right.
girl named Emma White who wrote this brilliant song. It's called 10-Year Town. But the tag of the line is, you know, after 12 years in a 10-year town.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, that's so good.
I think the point is that it could be a 1 year, it could be a 5, it could be a 10, it could be a 20, or it could be a 1,000-year town. You may never get it. You don't deserve anything. Even if your songs are great, there's a version
Yeah.
where you just miss all of the opportunities. The timing isn't right. And if you can still say, it's my purpose, it's why I'm here, it's why I'm supposed to be here, I'm going to live the life I'm supposed to live regardless. And, you know, there's so many artists that after they died, Beethoven, you know, is much more respected after his death than during
Yeah.
his life.
Nothing shines a halo like death.
Let's all kill ourselves. The reality is like, hey, man, do what you think it is you're called to do. But it's like, be able to pivot and understand that it's not always going to feel your payoffs that you think that are pushing you along on the way. Don't count on them, because they're going to pivot and change. They're not going to feel the same whenever you do hit them.
Don't
when you
wait
do get
to
them.
be discovered. Don't wait
Do
for
the work.
someone to find you and make you what you want to be. Go make your way. Be you. Go make you. Go. That's with everything in life, man. If you want to be an architect and you want to
Yeah.
build cool houses, just don't wait for people. You know, learn the craft, but go make your
And I'm glad you
way.
came to Nashville, because it's like your game was really, you were great at what you were doing. But now you've come into a market with a different genre, and now you're super relevant. You couldn't have done that from Minneapolis.
Well, I
your
drink a lot
songs
more,
wouldn't
but-
be that organic. But it wouldn't be like whenever you sing Quitter, it's like, that's a song that when I hear it, it's like, I feel like it's about me. Even though I've never struggled with addiction, you know, and it's like, to do that that's a pretty advanced level of songwriting. It's authentic, and you have something that's super authentic and super relevant to the market that you're in. You're great. We love you. We want to thank you for coming on, and we'll put all your contact. If you want to contact Troy and write with him, or have him record your record, or whatever, we'll
reach out to me and
put
see
him in
if I can-
contact with you,
If I can
or we'll give you all the
share
means
some of
to
my
connect with
wisdom.
him. Yeah.
that I've
6 years of it, man, and you've got a lot more prior to that, but you got 6 relevant to town now. So your experience has really made you who you are. So thank you all for tuning in. We're tuning out. We'll see you next time from the West Barn.